citizen concerns. We have citizen concerns. Going once? All right. Next, we're going to skip the minutes of the 11th because hard copy's not in front of you. Is that acceptable, board? All right. So the next item is the comprehensive budget documents.
Okay, so you should have these in your packet. There's two sets of them. One's revenue, one's the other. So what I'd like to do is get this up. Hey Bob, would you mind trying to see if we can get this on?
While Ruth is preparing, I want to call folks' attention to the FY19 local aid estimates. We don't have the House one, we don't have Senate Ways and Means, but the governor's proposed budget is out, and we're down $100,000 over last year in our Chapter 78.
Okay, so let me acclimate you to the materials that I handed out, which of course I didn't keep my own copy, now I do. So you've been asking for a comprehensive budget document for some time, and so I've been working on it for a while, and what I have done is I've put in, let me just, you want to, and I think we're going to try to get it up on the screen because it's much more user-friendly when you actually have the formulas and everything else in front of you.
Sure.
So the beginning of this is the revenue side of things. And so it's this first sheet, it has multiple ones. So you'll see that we plugged in all the FY18 data, this here. It's really hard to see in paper form. Oh, yep.
I have both the same.
You should have another, you should have a set that looks like this. So you have the revenue, and then you have this, which is going to give you what Peggy, you and David have been asking. Kind of, do you have one of those?
I got three revenues.
I have two revenues. I have two revenues. Is this the other one?
That's the other one.
Here.
All right. So pass your extra revenues around.
Make a pile.
There's some extra revenues.
Okay.
There we go.
Makes a lot more sense now, huh?
Yeah. Couldn't figure out otherwise. Yes, did you get?
Dollar sign, oh, dollar sign exclamation point. So dollar sign there. Thanks. Okay. We good? I'm hoping he can get it on the screen and yeah, both of them came off on 6 pages. Okay, we're good? All right, so now everybody's looking at the revenue page at the top, and it starts with the FY18 budget being $15,763,944. Do you have, everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm not going to read through each one of these numbers, but you can see that they have the, the revenue from the states, both from Chapter 70 for FY18 and for FY19. You can see that the total revenues from the state are $4,509,371 for FY18 and $4,352,003 for FY19. Okay. Do you have a question, Peggy? Look, are you good? Okay. And then there's a formula to get your net school spending, which is your required spending, And so the next line down is the minimum net school spending. Then after that, there's a minimum contribution by towns. That's the total figure. It's not individualized by each this is for the whole district. And then above minimum contribution, that was a 4,486,148, and this year we projected somewhat arbitrarily, because we have to really go through all these numbers, collectively with the budget subcommittee, $6,654,652, in what we're saying would be an above minimum contribution, which last year we did have, and I don't know if it's been in prior years, but definitely last year we had an amount of money that the towns gave us over and above what was required that they give us, and that's what that number represents. The transportation budget, you can see that it went up just a very little bit, and when they put out the information from the governor's budget, they said it was 70%, but we know that last year we budgeted, I think 65%, and our percentage was like 62%. So it's actually, I didn't budget it at the 70%. We're going to have to figure out what that looks like, but it's the same amount of money as we had last year. And if you remember, we were $200,000 short in our budget because we had, estimated a little bit high. So this is being estimated low, just so that doesn't happen again. And so then the operating assessment, net change, and then if you can look at the next page, which is blank, but the one after that, it gets into the capital. This is where there's numbers in here for the FY18 capital projects, and remember that anything we do at Pioneer is a capital project to the district. Any capital projects that take place in elementary schools, it's done in conjunction with the leadership of the town, and we actually fund it, but they actually give us the money for that. So that is not in here because it's not going to affect our general ledger budget. And I didn't, and then, so the other thing that's in here is the $100,000 note that you take out annually for the technology that was purchased, the $400,000. So this is not complete because I don't have the information from the towns or from the technology department, yet not technology, the facilities department, to let us know what exactly, if anything, do they want to do to this building this year. I put a placeholder of $25,000 because I had heard that they might want to do a couple more rooms of carpet in Pioneer, but I really haven't heard anything else from that. And so you can see that, as we move forward, when these numbers change, it will not on your paper copy, but on the spreadsheet copy, you'll be able to see the changes. And I think, and so then the next pages is the town's assessments. So there'll be Bernardston and Northfield. And again, this isn't, their minimum contributions are accurate, but, and their percentage of, let me see if I put it in here, because I did figure out what their percentage of transportation and other sources of revenue would be. So like in Bernardston, you can see that transportation assessment FY18 was $67,929, and this year it's $67,929, and that's because I just kind of level funded it before the actual numbers came out. So you'll look and you'll see Bernardston, and then you'll see Northfield, Leiden, and Warwick. So it was kind of quick. I want to see if I can get it up on the screen. can't find Excel, yeah. Oh, is that it up there? Yeah, from there, yeah, it's the only thing on it. So, do any of you have any questions about the revenue side of this? I know it looks complicated, but it should just be, if you go to computer, go back, and then it'll pull up all the, because it's on the, huh? So it should be, yeah, that's it. Yay. Whoa. I don't know, yeah, if it's that. Okay.
Ruth,
Yes.
excuse me. I probably can't hear. I thought you said you calculated the percentages for 19 for the towns.
Yes, and a sheet, somewhere here, the sheet is here, if for some reason,
It's not in here. It's not on this sheet that we're talking
no, it's not on that sheet, and I haven't, I just figured it out by the 5-year average that we have to do every time. I thought that I had a look after, because I'm sure I have that. But the revenue sheet, I was trying to get the information that we already had that was accurate put in here, and I didn't want to go too far, especially with the capital, because that gets kind of confusing. So do you have any questions about this revenue side? Obviously, we have to get more information, and I think that the second piece, which is much more defined with actually the budget itself, will help. So if you want to shift to the revenue, and maybe that'll make things a little smoother.
Budget.
The budget, yeah. So, this is the comprehensive budget document that I hope meets the needs that you and Peggy were kind of looking for. So I can walk you through the first slides. I mean, the FY18 budget is pretty straightforward. It's by the categories that the auditors had suggested that you look at. And then down below, so the first column is sorted by district, central office, and by the schools. And the next column down, the second column down, is the same information, but it's sorted by administration, instruction, operation, benefits and insurance, student support services, technology, transportation, and tuition. So it's the same financial information, it's just sorted a couple ways if you want to look at it more than one way.
Ruth,
Yep.
I guess I'm a little bit confused then, because the total here is 18 million, and up here it's 14 million.
Because that was the approved budget up above. And then what down below, if you look to the right column, I put in the 1,078,999, and that was the information, that was the revenue side, what we put in and what we spent for school choice. So that's where the school choice and the revenues, if you look over to the right a little bit more, then like, go over to FY, where's 19, okay? So FY 19, those numbers that are there are the numbers that we're proposing for the budget, under FY 19 proposed general budget. To the right of that, you'll see 70,201, which was district-wide spending. What that represents, and you can see more detail as you go down, what that represents is special needs that are from the special needs office, so that goes district-wide, and there are some teachers that are shared that are also district-wide. And so that money, and so those two columns, the 70,000 and 900,000, were grants. And unfortunately, I gave an explanation to what the grants were, but, so the 900,000 school choice and the 70,000 is circuit breaker. We did not have a 70,000 in FY 18's school committee circuit breaker account because we had overrun the account and we were not using it this year so that it could grow back up. And so in this budget, we're projecting that we could use the $70,000 out of school choice to offset some of the budget. And that would be, that 70,000 would represent information from Chris, because that dollar amount, that circuit breaker is used for special ed. So then if you go over again in the next column, again, it's the budgeted amount, and to the right of that budgeted amount, there's, those are the net changes, and then the percentage.
Just to reiterate Jeannie's question and not understanding the answer, even if we use some of the revolving funds, how do you explain the $4.6 million difference between this and this?
So it could be in a formula somewhere in here. I'm not positive, because this is a new sheet to me as well. But I do know this top column is, so when I picked up down below to carry it in, these are formula based. We can't change the 14,067. We can't change those. So this next one down, it picked up, what it picked up was exactly from below. So I'm not quite sure why. Because, but after that, all those numbers, all those numbers came from what was below. Let's see what the end result of that one is. Central office. And at the bottom, I don't know what it picked up. Because we had the 14.3, it picked up something.
If you look at the very last number.
Yep.
It's 4,163,000.
Yep. That's a total elementary budget.
I know.
And then the middle
If
high
you
school.
add that to the
So that
14,067,
You come out to the 18,
yeah,
it comes closer.
yeah.
so
So
I'm not sure
why the
when this, what the top row tells you, that's other than it's organized different than the bottom row, and I'm not quite sure why.
in the top section.
Other than that was the FY approved general fund. I probably should have just put these other numbers in there, but what I did was I took from all below so that we had a picture of what was spent.
Yeah, if you add these, they're coming out exactly.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
I just did it fast.
Yeah,
So if you add this to this, you come up with this.
yeah.
Right. But if you want to move on to look at each of the schools, the schools are the, you know, the focus of what I put in, you know, the district, and these are the actuals that were there with grants by school.
$150,000 for teachers, for instruction in the high school. It's outrageous. 15.2%.
Jeff?
Look at this.
That's what I was just looking
Just
at.
simple, looking at this,
How many
the
teachers
price
should be up
at
that
this
much?
point is slightly less than $1 million over last year. 15,019,000 versus the 14,067,000.
Right.
Okay.
That's
All
accurate.
these other numbers,
The bottom, I know why this didn't come out right, because I put formulas into this second sheet down to gather that information, and now when I look at it, I probably should have just left the approved budget the way it was and did the cell, you know, the formula for the rest.
I was looking at the instructional budgets. And the high school, middle school, high school is up 15.2%. For the elementary schools, the highest is 0.2%. Is that because we have a lot of teachers that have been here for a long time?
So the way the administrative team got together to talk about what they would look at for a budget, and they decided that they would level fund the things, you know, materials, but they would level service the people, for lack of a better word.
Instructional or students?
So all of the teachers and the paraprofessional, all of the staff that we have, we level service. So they would get, we would move them up on the scale and they would get that, you know, that amount of money. So, and then, you know, things like papers and all, they just level
Supplies.
funded all that. And that was how this budget was adopted. It's going to be much clearer. I mean, the purpose of this tonight, going over this, was really to see if it's going to meet, it's less than perfect, but is this going to meet your needs for the comprehensive budget document that you are looking for? Does it give you the information?
I would say probably, but seeing it for the first time and not seeing any formulas revealed.
Right, I know, and that's what I was
gotta-
good, yeah.
I got to reserve judgment.
No, and it's okay, because that was the purpose of this, to get a document. And what I had done was I went to our auditors and said, do you have any examples of a comprehensive document that you think would help the committee? And so she gave me these templates, and I put in what we know now, even though I've been working with it for a while and it's still kind of overwhelming trying to get a handle on it. I can send you each, I can send it to you electronically, which it is far more friendly when you see it electronically, because you can look at the formulas, you can manipulate it, but here you're just getting a hard copy.
Actually, that was
You know, so, and if it's not going to work, tell me now, because it's a lot of work. No, I think when you see it in electronically, it's going to be a lot easier.
So on page 5 of the
Okay.
proposed, let's change the title on that, but,
The last page, central office,
it says
district.
district-wide K-12 only. What,
So what's in there?
yeah, what's in there?
Okay, so I brought the document, but what I did was I took this, right? You know, what you have, and when it said district, I put it under central office, okay? So if you look at the back of the book, it says, not this, shared staff, but then also Chris's special ed. So all of Chris's special ed that is district-wide is in that, shared, and that. So if you had this book, if you had this at your house, you would be able to take this information and go right to that page and see exactly how we spent money last year. Because that's where this came from.
Just around $400,000. That's wonderful.
Can you walk us through how we get to this, the current fiscal year, 18 point?
The reason it
6,
does,
well-
because I think it picks it up from, actually, you know, I should probably turn this, the thing on. So when I put all this in, there were formulas already in here. And so what I believe it did was,
Are you saying don't believe that number?
I would say don't believe that number at this point, because I think
I
I
don't
made,
believe that number.
yeah, no, that number's not right. So,
Which number are you talking about?
18,659,000.
yeah. Well, don't forget that that could include all the grant money.
I hear you.
You know, but I still think it's high. But I think it's because when I took the second page here, and instead of typed in the numbers, I did a formula, and I think it might have affected that back one.
So therefore, all across that line might be off, like the 19.
No, not inside each one of these schools are accurate, because all that was input by me, okay? And so, and I didn't put formulas in that. I just put what we were budgeting and what we had budgeted last year. So I took this and inputted it into all of the different sections. I think where it's not being used to this document, that the formulas that were already put in this document probably had assumptions differently for the first two the first two sections that I didn't. So if you look at the schools themselves, when the principals report, it's going to be pretty much matched to what is in the individual schools.
So looking at the FY19 budget proposal, the top sheet.
Yep.
In the first block, as Frank pointed out, we're looking at almost $1 million increase in proposed general fund budget
And
over last year.
that, I believe, is probably right, because with staffing alone, we're looking at over a $500,000 increase in just the steps and lanes. And then our, you know, our health insurance is going up 4.7%. We don't have a total, you know, we have part of the formula for our retiree health. That's gone up, and they haven't, GIC hasn't given us a number yet. They didn't give us an actual number until August of last year. But so you have to project that to be going up another 6%. So most of the increases are the things, our unemployment's going up, our workman comps go up. That pool of money, I think, is the other half of the equation of why it could be $1 million.
Okay, I think it's probable that workman's comp won't go up. And one thing we may want to do is ask them to audit us and reassess our deposit premium.
So,
Because as we have fewer employees and a lessened payroll,
yep.
They'll base it on the year before the year we're in now, and we'll make a deposit premium. If we could avoid overpaying our comp bill, that would be helpful. What I'm struck with is $1 million increase in expenditures in the general fund, which is 5.6%.
Yep.
I think we should be using budgeting from a revenue standpoint with the governor's number, which says we're going to get $100,000 less, not more, next year.
Right.
And so, and we're talking seriously about not increasing the assessments to the member towns by more than 2.5%. $1 million going from 14 to $15 million. We aren't on the same page. So the committee needs to take this in context and say, you know, are we on board for this minimal growth, or are we going to the towns with a substantial increase that the towns may probably feel they can't afford and may not support? Is that an appropriate question, committee?
But I mean, this is where we have to start. We have to
Right,
put
right.
in what we think we need to meet the needs of our students. And, I mean,
And
it's
that
like
is
an
what we did,
exercise
Peggy.
we have to go through every year, which we all hate, but
And this doesn't even include a business manager, a curriculum.
Yes, it is. Yes, they do. So
Oh, it
the
does.
next thing maybe that might be good to take you away from this very confusing document, but you're right. I mean, I think it's going to end up being a really good document. I think everybody just has to get used to it. But the principals are here, and you have actually their line item budgets in front of you, and they're here to present whenever you would like them to.
But these figures on here don't match here.
Which one?
I mean, we'll
Well,
just take.
it's because the formula adds in other things. So they added in, and they added in the Title I grants and the early ed tuitions that are being used there, and the Whipple grants. And so that, so believe it or not, that budget was put in here exactly from those sheets, and it matched. But because of the other things in here that are added up, I think it
Okay,
gets
so the
confusing.
question would be, we'll just use Northfield as an example.
This doesn't
This,
include
the
budget.
detailed sheet,
Transportation
these
budget.
3 pages,
Yep,
give us $1,564,000 for last year. And this sheet's given us $1,552,000, so we're only off a little bit on that one,
but
12,000.
that was, yeah.
Yeah, 12,000.
12,000.
So,
But so if you look at 19,
we
it's
look at
higher.
19, it's,
1,620,000.
Right.
Ruth, why don't you ship this to us as an Excel file?
Okay, I think that's the way to go.
Would
You have to
the committee
look
be
at the
agreeable? We'll hear
formulas.
from the principals who we have here now.
yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
oh, definitely.
And I will give it to all of you as an Excel file, and you'll be able to go, and you can,
Yeah.
I think it'll make more sense. It took me a while to really get acclimated to it, and I still have a ways to go, but I truly believe that, given the auditors gave it to us, and I think once we get used to it, it will be a very useful
Make sure
instrument.
Jane gets a copy too.
Oh, Jane, yeah,
And
I'll send it to
when Jim-
finance people.
When Jim leaves early, he's not being rude. He has emailed me and says he's got another
Oh,
appointment
okay.
coming up, so.
Thank you.
I like the format, it's just we've got to work on getting the right numbers in here, so.
Well, I think they are, but I think when you see it and you have it time to work with it, Peggy, I think it's going to work.
Principal who would like to be next?
Excuse me, so this proposed budget includes a
Include,
business manager,
yes, halftime.
half-time, full-time
Half.
curriculum coordinator, or half-time?
Jean has that in her budget.
Okay,
Um,
but that's district-wide, isn't it? Or
there's-
is it just for the high
I
school,
think they
middle
were,
school?
well, I can let them speak.
All
but
right.
I think it is that they want halftime for the high school, or I don't know if they want, let them
All right,
explain.
And, all right,
Like Peggy said, this is where we're starting, you know, and it is high, and it's higher than
Mr.
you know.
Clancy?
Hi, Bob.
Welcome, Bob. Are you going to talk about Leiden or Bernardston first?
I have Bernardston first.
right.
Both of my sheets, I'd like to have to redo fiscal 18 because for some reason the cells didn't populate correctly from the budget book.
Yeah,
Oh, move
somebody
the-
give
move the
Bob a
mic.
mic, please.
What I was saying is that the fiscal 18 on this page, numbers didn't populate correctly from the budget book where I have individual pages, and so for some reason fiscal 18 isn't correct. Fiscal 19 I feel comfortable with, because I think that fiscal 18, the total was supposed to be $1,333,659, not the 1.2 million that's shown there. So I have to double check that. But as far as the fiscal 19 numbers go, I can take you through and show you where some of the biggest changes are. I mean, special needs instructional assistance at the bottom, that's gone up quite a bit from 18 to 19. That 121,000 went up this year as well because of some one-to-one students that we had to provide for. Right now we have 8 one-to-ones and 2 special ed instructional assistants. The one-to-ones are providing assistance for students with medical needs and some with behavioral needs. And then the 2 special ed IAs are providing services to meet the needs of IEPs that the special education teachers aren't able to fully complete.
BES, there's 2 sheets.
Yeah.
So as far as a year-to-year goes, fiscal 18 this year, the total should show $1,333,659. So I have to see where that difference is. And the fiscal 19, $1,379,325.
What's 18 again, Bob, please?
18, $1,333,659.
Thank you.
So, and as Ruth said earlier, we level funded things and then level serviced what the students needed in the classrooms. I don't know if you have anything that's jumping right out at you for fiscal 19 or in the year-to-year.
ELA supplies almost tripled.
ELA supplies. 450 is what was given for this year. What was originally asked for was the $1,115. It's trying to get a leveled reader, a number of leveled readers for the classrooms that we had to cut, and so I was trying to put that back into the budget.
All right.
An example of what's missing on the fiscal 18 page, like the nurses line, there should be a salary there of $64,854 in the fiscal 18.
In fiscal
18.
Right.
The column to column. It doesn't show, for some reason, it didn't populate from the budget book.
How much was that again?
$64,854.
So I did add that into the budget, because
Right.
I saw that you had missed it, and half-time for one of the counselors, I think, was missing. So
For the
something
adjustment
happened with
counselor.
that budget book.
Yeah. And so I have to go back and reconcile that.
Custodian part-time?
Same thing,
Did you
but-
have one this year?
Yes, and that should have been $9,732.
That more than doubled.
What's that?
That's because we had custodian shift, so more expensive custodian came to his building and
Okay.
left. In Northfield, you'll probably see a reduction
Okay.
in hers.
So Bob, is nurse line in FY 18 one of the missing things?
It is.
And
That was the $64,000 add-in.
where would the adjustment counselor be?
The adjustment counselor should be in the special needs. Let me double check here.
Adjustments counselor, it's on the second page.
Yeah, under special needs salary.
Well,
Second page.
there's 2 pages for Bernardston.
One's Pearl Roads and one's,
One's
Bernardston.
Bernardston, one's Pearl Road. They're
I
not
have two that
labeled
say
right.
BES.
Yeah, I know.
Are they the same?
No,
No.
the one that's
No.
for 500,000 is.
Pearl Road.
Pearl Road.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't have a Pearl Roads budget book, and so I rebuilt it from a Bernardston book.
It works, as long as we know which one is which.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
But the adjustment counselors were added last year.
The adjustment
They were
counselor for
full-time.
Bernardston is under the special needs salaries.
special needs salaries, okay.
This is Pearl Road.
There's a whole set here if somebody wants a set of everything.
If they had them, they just were confused. If they had them, they just were confused.
And I thought we created another account for adjustment counselor.
We did. We have line items and everything for them. Yeah, we do. And they were using the budget books last year that they presented you with, but thought they
Right.
didn't need to go to that level of.
You had a sub-coordinator, didn't you, this year, Bob?
Right, and that was, again,
Missing.
450, right.
Oh, there,
So all of these lines are blank,
There should be
should
something in
be
there.
something in there.
Right.
is that's just the FY
How much was
18,
that?
right? The
That's
FY
was
19 is
450.
actually.
It's in there for
Same.
FY19,
Okay.
right.
This year it's 300. So it was the same last
No,
year?
it was for sub-coordinator, it was 450 and 450.
Okay, I'm looking in Pearl Roads again.
Pearl Roads is a $300 smaller
Yeah,
staff.
I saw that. After yeah, okay.
So do you want to talk about Pearl Road?
Under Pearl Roads, the fiscal 18 total should be 561, 183.
Under what? Which one?
Under fiscal 18, 561, 183, I believe is the correct number.
I think I put something back in for you, but we can look at it later. I think that there was I think that's a good number, but we can review it.
On the chart, but it indicated in 561, 183.
183?
Yeah.
Nurse again, Bob?
That's the 18.
The
Right.
correct needs to be added in. I don't have that. Let me see if I have it on the
Tutor.
sheet here. The nurse for fiscal 18, 28,455.
Thank you.
And a change in custodian here where we do not have a day custodian, and now we just have a night custodian.
Was it the same for fiscal 18?
Fiscal 18 is correct under their custodial salary, and fiscal 19 is going to be 0.
Oh, okay.
And
then switch it for,
right, and then for the custodian part-time, fiscal 18 is a 0, and for fiscal 19 is 9965
okay.
as shown.
Just. Is there anything else under Pearl Roads that has changed or different?
I guess the only other thing will probably be principals, the principal.
Right. So he split his the amount, his salary between the two buildings. And for doing more work, he got more money. I mean, he is really overseeing two facilities.
Yeah, they're not split between the two budgets right now. That'll probably be a reduction on the Pearl Road side.
Yeah, I thought that was, but where it was there, I figured
Okay.
it's both budgets.
New physician salaries down here.
Again, there was a physician salary, but it didn't transfer over.
Well,
And I want to say it was 200.
It's here,
Yeah.
but she donated it back.
Right. We haven't
Okay.
used it because
Okay.
she said keep it. So it's still on those lines, but they haven't been used. Anything else for Bob?
Well, on On salaries,
For Pearl or,
either one, I'm just wondering what your basis was. Was there a percentage applied? I mean, you're making it essentially an educated guess about what the next contract's going to look like.
I'll leave
Yeah,
that to Ruth.
I think that's what we're, I think we are trying to figure that out some.
So my question is, what was the underlying assumption to create this
A
budget?
1%,
1% increase.
right.
Steps are figured in now?
Steps were there because steps are there, and then, and again, it's like
You have
Peggy
to
said,
use
we
a
have to
figure.
start somewhere.
I just want to know what it is.
No,
Yeah,
no,
yeah,
I'm
you're
just-
right, right,
Yeah.
it's
I
a
wanted to-
1%,
Well,
We used to hush it up.
They
but-
need to,
right.
for budget reasons.
Yeah, but you don't need to talk about it in open session.
So the total,
But again,
the total salary for Bob is those two salaries?
No. No. Be
So why
nice.
is it in the, why is it in?
That was the number, I'm sorry, that was, under Pearl Roads, that was the number for last year's principal part-time salary, and then the other half of the salary was in early education. It hasn't been adjusted yet because my contract still needs to be adjusted, negotiated. It would be nice, but no.
So who's filling that job? Early education?
who?
Well,
Renee Kier is helping out right now with early education at the moment.
so somebody is receiving parts of that 52 or?
No, it's $4,000 for the early ed position, and next year, our special ed director has graciously is going to take it over with no increase to her salary.
So I guess you can't make the adjustment on the fly right now, what that number should be as far as $45,000.
No, I don't think right at this.
Well, you're going to have to do it sometime. I mean, why-
Right, so I would rather do it collaboratively with others and thinking about it and,
Within the next 2 weeks, is that right? Or,
No,
well, yeah, I mean,
not necessarily.
it's going to we're going to continue to refine it. Our focus this time was to kind of put out there what it would look like, and as, Peggy said, this is, we're starting with, here's our wish list. This is what we'd really like for, our district and what would really be able to support our students. And so, yes, this is a very preliminary budget. It's very, getting it out there, seeing letting people know, are they concerned, and what threshold, as you said, can the towns really handle. In addition, we haven't even addressed the fact that what are we going to do with that food service? So how does that play into, and I know it's, it would just be a different assessment, but it's still a conversation we have to
so
have.
it's a piece of money that you might work into a lot of different things.
Yeah, and I'm sure there are other ways we could streamline this, but when we get to streamlining it, there's an impact on students. So we just wanted to say, if we could get what we wanted, then this is being reasonable. This is what we would want for our children. This is what we would want for all Pioneer students. And from that, we have to get more detailed numbers. The revenue numbers just got out, and now we need, we don't have the health insurance from GIC. The information dribbles in, so this will evolve over the next few weeks and months, maybe.
So GIC's claim to fame is they're the best, okay?
Yeah.
And we're with HCOG, and that's 4.7%. Since GIC's the best, I would suggest that for budgetary purposes, we use 4.7 or 5% until we find out otherwise,
Okay.
okay?
Yeah, I had a call into him, but yeah, that, and put GIC in there. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
we need a number. Let's work with the same one or something close to HCOG. We have to, every year, explain to the state why we don't use GIC. We
Right.
have to send them, proof that we've done all the studies and this is a better deal, because they don't believe anything's better. So
Okay.
GIC ought to be able to hit the kind of increases that HCOG. Now, HCOG would have been 11% had they not made changes in benefits, though.
And you
So
have
maybe
in
I'm-
your packet, it's telling you which which companies they're not going to use for their health care, which ones they are. So the majority, they say, will be able to actually keep their health care, and anybody else will just move into a new plan.
And is that final? I thought there were talks of them reconsidering that change.
That's
And
what
according to
they're
that-
passing out for budgeting. And the other thing that they're working on is they're working on increasing the deductibles for pharmaceuticals, which is really going to have an impact, I think, on our staff. So yeah, so I mean, it's like a lot of not good news.
Anything about health insurance.
Bob?
David, when you're comparing fiscal year 18 with fiscal year 19, you know, when you got the principal, I don't understand why you don't have, you said you paid Bob 10 grand out of that, and you paid Renee Kier 4 grand out of that?
No,
So if you-
Renee came out of the early ed budget.
Well, how can you compare 18 with 19 if you don't have something more realistic than the 52,000 in there? I mean, it looks like, dear, oh, we're going down, that's great. But are we really going down? Because you got 561 with 52,000 in there. So it's not a good comparison.
You'd rather see our change, rather than our original voted budget, you'd rather see the adjustment.
You know, if you had a big adjustment like that, it only seems reasonable.
So, right,
Well,
so,
we can change 19. We can't change 18.
Well, if we have, then we can. So for instance, we voted a budget, but we have
If you have a budget,
been
then
we
you
haven't
should have
picked
you shouldn't change the budget, you should have another
Expense
amount
line.
to expend.
actual or,
so you have the budgeted and then actual to date, which is what you get every month. The new form that Brenda gave you, it has how much we spent in that month, but then it also has a year-to-date figure in it every time. So those would be telling for you, Bob. I think you get them. You know the one I'm talking about, the
Yeah.
report?
would you rather have a value in a cell in another column or perhaps a footnote that explains that this was appropriated, but this was, you know, this change was made during the year? That might be, I'd find that more helpful than trying to derive meaning from another column of numbers.
Okay.
Whatever.
Did that work for you, Bob? Yep.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you for stepping up.
thank you. And actually, I just wanted to do that now because my numbers look different in the FY 18 column for that reason. I went back to originally funded numbers that when the budget was voted, because we had 2 rounds of cuts, and I'm not sure which cuts happened in June and which ones happened in August when we were back at the table again. So I went back to the originals. Some of those really need to go back in because we put things on hold for the year to try to accommodate for the deficit that we were facing. So that's what makes the numbers look a little bit off. I can kind of go through the FY 18 numbers and account for those differences, but
Why don't you tell them some of the significant ones? Were there some significant that you brought back?
let's see.
Yeah, I would focus on 19, yeah.
Okay, you want to go through 19?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, not a lot of changes. Looking at, I guess the educational equipment was one that I brought back in, which was Red Cat FM system for the classroom. That's a system that we have in most of our classrooms, but not all. They're used for hearing impaired students as well as a general classroom practice that teachers at Northfield have been using and appreciating. But when I came on board, they were looking to have them in all of the classrooms, and that was an unfinished project. And the other part of that educational equipment is we still have several classrooms that have chalkboards and not whiteboards, and they're looking to have whiteboards so that their projectors, well, for multiple reasons, but using their projectors as well as not using chalk anymore. So that's brought back into the budget from last year. Looking at the transportation for field trips, it was at $6,521. Some of those are the trips that happen in the district routinely, like the program to come over to Pioneer for band, things like that. But in Northfield's budget, typically there was also money to offset the cost of field trips for students. That portion was completely cut last year, and I'm looking to put half of that back in. So instead of putting 4,000 back in, putting 2,000 back in. So that explains that line. Well, let me just scroll down. There were some reductions as well, fine-tuning a few things like the math supplies I was able to drop by 1,060. Let's see. A couple slight increases or decreases within the maintenance of the building supplies and or contracted services, but those are pretty firm numbers in terms of what has to happen. Just a little bit more accurate to what's been expended. And then again, adjustments within the salaries. One of the big things that is most notable is that the I brought the sub-budget line item back up to what it was originally budgeted for last year, which was 33,000, and that got dropped through the process of reductions to 20,000, and I don't think that's going to cover what needs to be covered. So I brought that back up to 33. So that's a significant difference there. I think we have about 5,000 left right now in that line item, if I'm not mistaken, for the rest of the year.
How many IAs do you
I
have?
have no change in staffing. There were some changes just in classification, so those balance each other out fairly well, from classroom IAs to special ed one-on-one. So that's the only significant adjustment or notable adjustment with that, but there's no staffing changes. At least at this point. One of the things that happened I did reduce a teacher last year with our anticipated enrollment for this year. We ended up with a total of 45 new students, but many of those were kindergartners and our preschoolers, so we had about 20 brand new unexpected students coming in throughout the summer and a lot through August, so we did have to bring back a teacher in the final hour, which wasn't budgeted for. And so I'm holding the teachers in where they are now and watching the numbers closely. If at some point it looks like one less teacher is needed, then that could be a potential adjustment. But at this point, I don't think it's safe to do that.
I have two sheets here. Is that
They're
how
just
many?
two different versions.
Okay. All right.
One's formatted by categories, and one is just
All right.
a straight
That
list.
That's
my
all right.
question.
So
all
this
right.
one you should have a second page of that one.
Yeah, a shorter one. I've got that.
Yep, so that one goes with the categorized one.
Okay, I
Thank
didn't know
you,
that.
Megan.
Okay, so this is Northfield. I was just gonna ask the really dumb question of how come we've got duplicate numbers on each page.
Only
but
they
it
were
makes total
different.
sense. Okay.
So in the sheet that I have, that you don't have, I have a difference of 56,544 increase, but that doesn't account, it depends on what you want for the FY18 numbers, if you want the original numbers that were voted on, or which reduction, because we did go back to the table 2 times, I think at least 2 times
Last year?
last
Yeah,
year to cut.
I think let's just work with the
Final.
So-
The final one?
And my number here, the 1,620,000 is different than what's on the sheet that Ruth provided for you. So just to be aware of that. And I'm not sure what account,
There's other stuff put in there. Like,
Okay,
your Title I, you also, you got credited from some grants for special ed for some of your programs that are in your building that they're specifically to your building.
all right.
So I
But
think
did
that's why.
yeah. So we should check that, because I did account for all
So-
staff who will be paid from the NES budget. But we can
Yeah, I
cross-reference
think,
that?
I had Pam go through all of them, and she typically does it, and so she put those in. So
So
it's the salaries.
you're saying the 1,620,000 is the correct?
It is correct based on my information. If,
There could be salary lines that differ from the document that Pam does.
And the figure Ruth had was 1,586,000. Okay, so there's a difference of
40,000.
40,000, yeah.
I think it changes a little bit based on what assumptions were made as far as increases, you know, steps or what that would look like. So I think that that's why some of those salary lines, when we, you know, when you guys determine what you want to do with regard to salaries, you know, do you want to level fund them? Do you want to, you know, do the steps and lanes? Do you want to give an increase? I mean, that doesn't have to be done tonight, but I think that.
Well, a lot will depend on what's agreed upon in the contract negotiations.
Correct. So
Or
that's
maybe
why I
what's
think
agreed
some-
on in the contract will depend on what's agreed on in the budget.
I think it could go either way.
Right, right. But I think
It has
that
to be
that's
a
why
meeting
these
of the
numbers are
minds.
a little different because of you taking the salary grid and making an assumption or not.
Eventually, we do want to apply the same assumptions across campuses.
That would make sense.
Makes sense.
And we want all the sheets to have the same numbers on them
Yeah.
eventually.
I mean,
Thank you. Any more
Any
questions?
questions?
Probably, but thank
it's probably
I'm
50
sure
million.
we'll be back again.
Thank you.
Elizabeth?
Do you have a new nurse coming in, Nathan? Huh? Because FY18, oh,
Says, well,
okay,
top corner.
thank you.
excuse me.
I have here a new sheet that I've been working on. This is evolving. It's very close to the one that's right in front of you now. I don't know whether you want me to give you this sheet or whether it's just going to be confusing. There's only,
I can handle one more.
you can handle one. That's true.
If you have
It's
them.
just, yes, I have copies. I just, you know,
Yeah,
I know.
understand.
But
When
it's
you-
really, it's not significant.
No, it's not significant. It's $1,200 or something different.
But
But at this point, that makes a difference.
That's a big difference at this point. Decreasing us by 100,000. Oh, I know, indeed. So, just as Bob and Megan said, I have taken what we had in 2018, working with this year, and all of the non-personnel lines have been held just where they are, with the exception of, as Megan said, we had this year 0 for field trips. That was cut in the final whittling down. And also our science was cut. So I restored those things, and it's $750 for our field trips and $800 to the science line. But most everything else is, oh, and also the principal office supplies. We had cut that to $450, and basically we haven't made it. We've had to take money out of other lines in order to pay for our postage and paper and things. So apart from those lines which are level funded, then everything else is according to steps and an anticipated small increase for salaries. Is there any questions that you have as you look at it? I will say that we've had 2 students come into the school this year with severe special needs, and that increased our instructional assistant line in an unanticipated way.
Can you define small increase? Is it 1%?
We all use the same.
Do we have last year's figure? I'm sorry. The 2018's figure that you did spend?
I don't have it with me. Do you have it there?
Well, just on this sheet here, it's, you know, the special needs instruction assistant is only $500 difference, and that's...
Are you looking for the total, or?
Yeah.
Well, on this one,
It doesn't really have it. This one doesn't have it. Oh, this one here?
Yeah.
716,536.
What's she looking at?
Oh.
Oh, that
And
one.
this one here.
And the reason this is off is that 10,000, she didn't get any grants last year. That 10,000 is in this year. The grant for Warwick. It's to the left of FY19, which is an FY18 column, so that 10,000 actually is being budgeted in FY19. That might be why that looks a little different.
why, I mean, it's still a different figure.
Yeah, it's a,
Yes.
well, it's a different figure. Because if you are applying a grant to it, then you're taking it.
Well, that would bring us up to
Yeah.
719, but her budget is 725,
Yeah.
so.
What else would you like to tell us, Elizabeth?
Good idea.
Well, I worked with the numbers that we are working with now. I wanted to give you the real picture. One of the students has an aide in our building this year who joined our school in late August is from Orange, and I believe it's at least a good portion of that expense gets billed back to another, his sending district. So I'm not quite sure how, I have to be honest, those equations work, you know, how much we're...
Am I correct that we see that reimbursement in the next fiscal year on the cherry sheet?
Yes, because it goes to school choice. So we did get an increment this year, which applied from last year. The only tuition we get in the current year is Vernon. If we have a IA that comes from Vernon, they pay us in that fiscal year.
From our operating budget and from a cash flow perspective, though, we shoulder it for a year before it comes.
And it's not the full amount, is it, that we get reimbursed?
Actually, in January, Chris will sit down and she will put all the incremental special needs information in there, and we will get
February.
February?
Now, so next January? Or?
Can
It's next
can
year.
you answer that
No,
question? or-
Well, Pam's working on it, plus you write down that you get the school choice kids that come in, and then you put incremental.
But I mean, is it a full? And we don't know what percentage that is, or? Okay. It's sort of like this.
Is it sort of like a 5% or a 20%? Okay, all right, I just didn't have any idea what the ballpark was.
And that's from the sending district we get?
Yeah, a little bit back, yeah, you don't get much.
That just doesn't seem right.
Special needs was supposed to be billed back to the sending district.
It is. They give us a sheet, and then they put in the formulas, and then they determine how much they give us back. I thought they got most of it, but I don't know.
I didn't mean to further
Like, can you
complicate the
add
conversation.
trans-
That's good. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah,
I just,
I'm glad
we're
you
trying
asked.
to fact gather here.
Let's
By
just-
law, now we got it all there.
It's good
It's
information.
just kind of like, you know, when they give us chapter, you know, 70.
Well, baloney, they told us they were gonna give it all to us, tell them to give it to us.
Well, that, yeah, just like the reimbursement on
Transportation.
transportation.
Yeah, I was gonna
They
say,
just keep
tell us
taking
we
it
want our
away.
transportation too.
And, yeah, and we have quite a few kids that we're paying, and it's not just we're paying their extra special ed out and incoming, and it's getting closer all the time of how much it's costing for you to bring kids in and how much you're paying to go out. I mean, it's.
So, not to be mean, but do we have to take these kids from other
You
districts?
can't discriminate. If you accept school choice.
Okay,
Right.
that makes sense.
I do put a clause in the bottom of the school choice applications that to be aware, if we don't have a program that fits your child, that meets your child's needs, then we can say no. And we have said no to certain extreme cases beforehand, but sometimes we don't always know. We don't know, or they're, in some cases, they've been homeschooled for a while, for instance, as a classic example. So you have nothing, and you don't know that they're severely special because they haven't been evaluated. But they want to come, so you know, accept them. There's no basis to not accept them, and then once you accept them, then you got to deal with it. So.
I mean, you'd have to vote to not take any school choice.
Even if we did that, we'd have every school choice kid who's already in the system.
Yeah, we have to keep.
Yes, you would.
Until they're through the.
Until they're through the system. So, I mean, I guess you could well, yeah, I mean, you could ultimately start as they come in, but I don't know.
Committee, other questions for Elizabeth?
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
We saved the best for last. No, I think we got two more.
Yep, 2 more.
Okay, so you all have my thing?
Somewhere.
Should be.
Here, I have
This one?
I have an extra. You have this?
Want this one?
Good?
And yours is 2 sheets?
3 sheets.
3 sheets.
What number is
It's
it?
actually 4. It's 4 pages.
Oh, you know what?
Maybe yours printed
I
out.
squished it so it would only go to 3.
All right, okay, so
What's
mine
the
will.
third
So I
page?
cut your comments down a little bit, so
Oh,
it would.
okay.
What
Yeah.
is
I'm just missing the first.
Want this one?
this is the third sheet.
Here you go. You're welcome.
Here, I have extra copies if you just want.
Yeah, that would be easy.
Here,
Missing
I'll just
one.
pass around to all the extras that I have here. Here, you can work off this one. You're looking at the exact same layout
Oh,
as I'm
thank
looking
you.
at. Okay. So again, as Bob said earlier, what we all did as administrators was to level fund all the stuff and the supplies, and then to level service fund all the personnel. I did put 2 additions into my personnel into this budget, and that's what you see up at the top. The budget that appears in the sheets that Ruth put together, and the $3,859,790, that reflects an addition of 1.5 FTEs, a 0.5 curriculum coordinator, and I believe that the other 0.5 of that curriculum coordinator is somewhere in the district budget. So it would be a full-time person that would serve both the high school and the elementaries, but half of it appears in my budget. And the other position I added is on the second page that you have in the guidance and counseling services. We have a new program that we've been working on this year with Chris McGuire called the BRIGHT program, which services students who are not ready or able at a particular time to function in the regular classroom. So it's a kind of transition program where students will come into that program, spend some time there, and try to transition back into the regular classroom. And for that program to function fully the way we'd like it to, we need to add an additional adjustment counselor to really head that program and be the point person to service those students. So that is, I put in there. So those are the only 2 additions. So I also did, if you take those 2 positions out, then you have a total back on the first page of $3,759,790. which is a 9.5% increase over my current budget. And then just as some of my colleagues did, there's a couple things where I reverted from the actual budget that I'm working with this year back to a more reasonable level. One is in the substitutes. We had been cut down to $35,000 for the substitutes, and that's not going to cover us this year, so I restored it back to $50,000, which I think is a more reasonable level, given our current staffing and given past histories that I looked at in terms of how much was spent at Pioneer on substitutes. The other thing was this special needs instructional assistance, again under the teaching services on the first page. We had been cut down to $144,000 in the final budget number that we're working with this year, but we actually have quite a few more IAs in our building than that, so I budgeted for next year based on the number of current IAs we have. Does that make sense? So that was underfunded. On the second page, again, most of it's pretty clear. I didn't restore the academic field trips, which had been cut last year. I didn't restore the Naviance program for guidance counseling, which was going to be about $10,000 for the first year and then 2 to 3 for years thereafter. I didn't restore that back, but those also would be nice. I did put in the counselor. You see under guidance and counseling services, the guidance salary. I put a salary in there for a new counselor, if that's possible. And then on the third page the only change that I made is I sort of moved some money around. This $5,000 that it cost us to put on graduation really should be under other student activities rather than instructional supplies, because it's not instructional supplies. So I have moved it down to its appropriate line this year and reduced the instructional supplies budget. Not quite by that much, but by as much as I could based on what we actually spent in FY17. And then on the final page, the very last page, I made some adjustments in utilities based on what our actuals were from FY17. Some of them I adjusted, some of them I didn't. The one that was higher, the light and power, I adjusted up. I didn't touch the other ones, but you can see the actuals there from FY17 in terms of what this building actually cost to run versus what you appropriated for FY18.
This might be a dumb question, Jean. I'm looking on page 2, and it says health services, and then underneath that there's a nurse salary.
Yes.
What, I guess I'm asking what health services covered?
It goes from that page to the page after. So the nurse's salary.
Oh, okay, physician.
And the physician's salary.
All right.
Is under health services.
Okay, thank you.
Ambitious.
Always.
Questions?
Thank you, Jean.
You have 5 minutes.
Okay.
Because you're so accommodating.
It was in the packet and says spread at the top. Looks like this.
Does she have one? One sheet?
Yep.
Yep.
So when you look at compare 18 to 19, there's going to be some things that jump out at you. One of them being transportation. For my out-of-district placements, I'm required to do, it is unbelievable. And I will say that the last meeting I went to with Western Mass sped directors, we were all kind of irate about, there's no, like they put a cap on private sped school in terms of tuition, but there's no cap on we have to provide transportation, but they don't put any restrictions on what can be charged for that. So, and I've looked at other possibilities for transportation, but for example, last year I was transporting a student from Warwick to Northfield. So, Kosmeskis, I talked to them, they were going to charge me twice as much as Vanpool. So, we all end up using Vanpool because, you know, they can do it, they've got a quick turnaround, and it's extraordinarily expensive. And last year I was using a big chunk of my grant money to pay for that, but then I didn't have anything left over for, they're just sucking all the money away from some of the things that we'd like to do. So I put it in there so you could see it. But I also wanted to say that some of the money that we're putting into programs in district to keep students in district, I have like 7 students right now that could have been placed out. So if you think about that, a cheap day placement for a special needs student is about $50,000. So if you multiply that by 7, that's 350, and that's a low estimate. That doesn't include transportation. Or investing in the BRIGHT program that Jean mentioned, 2 of the students that are out of district placements right now are because of their emotional needs, and that's what I'm trying to avoid. I'm trying to invest in programs in district to keep them here in district rather than send them out. Currently, I don't have any elementary out-of-district placements because we have programs that we're working with, and I'm trying to move that up to middle school and high school so that we can cut down on these mandated expenses that there's not much I can do about it except try to avoid those kinds of placements, which I'm really trying to do. So that accounts for the biggest chunk of money out of district tuitions. And also, I realized that in the past, summer services have never been actually delineated in the budget. And, you know, I was like, well, where do I get them? Because those services are also mandated for some people, for some kids. And last year I was able to cut $20,000, a minimum of $20,000, maybe close to 25, out of summer services because I really tightened up on, the standard says it has to be substantial regression. So I really enforced that with my special needs teachers. So I did cut that out, but that said, there are still students who need services over the summer, so I have to provide that. So what I guess was done in the past was taking it out of, out of district tuition, which is not really, that's not what I want to do, because then I'm like kind of underfunded that way. So I put that in there so that it's a real number that we can work with. So other than that, and salaries.
Private tuition, Chris?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's the out-of-district placement.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's greatly increased.
Yes, last year that was mislabeled in like an elementary private tuition. It was actually should be Pioneer Valley or middle
so
school.
So this 100,000 was actually higher?
No, it was as a PV. It says PV private tuition. It was lower than that because it was also listed under elementary. There were 2 different places it was listed, so that's combining it to one. So it looks like a big jump, but really that's where it belongs.
All right.
So. Can we expect some circuit breaker relief,
yes.
Or is the distribution such?
We can expect circuit breaker. I'm also going to apply for extraordinary circuit breaker, but it's not a whole lot. The state expects you to pay a minimum amount. So like last year was like $42,830. And then anything you pay above that, they'll look at that and they'll give you 1.78, I think, percent of that back. So I think we got like 30,000 or something close to
Something like
that
that, yeah.
last year. So you don't get much, but we will go for it. You have to go for training every year, and then you have to put in for it, and you will get some money back, but you don't
We
get
really
as
don't
much.
get that much.
Well, I just learned something, and everybody else, I thought that circuit breaker was like health insurance stop loss, and then after you hit a certain level, it's just token.
Yeah. Yeah. It's another thing that the state does not give us back, and they don't, transportation's another whole issue, but,
Transportation is the biggest issue.
yeah, transportation.
It truly is. I mean,
it's huge.
and we hadn't really budgeted it. We put it in the grant, but
Right,
we
right.
had to we ended up overspending circuit breaker because we have to meet that obligation. But the rates and more kids that end up, getting placed and need to be transported, it's between,
right.
that's one of the increases and steps for our teachers, and transportation are neck and neck when you combine that with tuition, you're neck and neck with the biggest part of our budget. Yep.
So what percent of the money spent over 42.8 do we get back from the state?
Like I said, it's a small percentage.
I mean, it's not 50%?
Okay.
No, not at all.
It's 10%?
Less than that.
Less,
It's less than 10%?
right.
You're kidding me?
No, it's like nothing.
Well, I think I'm not the only one that learned something today.
Yeah.
Right.
Did it used to be more, Chris?
Well, what happens is they're behind a year. So when they look at all of this, like, Chapter 70 and our enrollments what we're getting paid this year is based on the year when we had to reduce the staff. And then a bunch of kids left, right? So we lost that, so we're reaping the benefits, not positive, from that fiscal year, because so much of this money is driven by how many students you have. And we're not provided for the students at Choice In. We get $5,000 for them. So when you think about, we spent a lot of money, but now we have fewer kids, and it lags behind. It's really frustrating because it's really hard, because we still have hard numbers that we have to hit, even though we're going to get so much less from the state.
I will get you percentages.
Okay, so my understanding is if you had to pay $80,000 for an out-of-district placement, of the money over $42,800, which is about 38 grand, you would get an insignificant amount.
That changes every
And
year.
that goes down every year, where it's not a guarantee that you can get extraordinary relief. It has to be,
Yeah, right, and that was last year's number, like 42 something.
So that's
and
not-
it's not on the 45, it's what over and above that you're gonna
And
get.
they give you a
But we were
percentage of that.
supposing you got it all back.
No.
Yes, well, that was today's lesson.
That's
Right,
why
and
Thank you,
I'm,
Chris.
that's why I'm
We've got
trying
another
to.
meeting at 7 o'clock,
Oh,
10
okay.
minutes ago, which all of us, I think, Peggy, you're not on that next committee, so I would like to suggest Peggy can stay here and answer the questions.
Yeah, we'll give Peggy the
already
floor.
had a meeting this afternoon, so.
Well, this is my second one.
So, thank you,
Well, thank you,
everybody.
David, for
Thank you.
pointing out the time. I appreciate it.
Our
Thank you to
next
all.
meeting of Budget Committee is scheduled for a week from today. There is also a graduation, which is at 6:30. So I'm going to set the budget meeting at 7:30. It's going to be a late start. It won't go a long time, but I think we have too much work to skip a meeting. So I urge school committee meeting members to attend the graduation.
The graduation is until 6:30?
Yeah,
6:30.
Father couldn't get here early enough.
All right, a motion to adjourn would be in order.
Make a motion to adjourn the budget subcommittee meeting.
Motion by Jeannie, second by Pat. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any
Thank you,
opposed?
everyone, for coming and giving us such wonderful information. God bless.